All right, good morning. Thanks for joining us today. It's the last day of November, 26 days from Christmas. So we've got, counting today, we got 4 Wednesdays left. Let's jump into today's message. Today we're going to talk about failure. And I'm going to open with Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21. It says, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." And when we think about that verse, what it really tells us is we have a lot of plans and a lot of goals and a lot of ambitions in life and things that we're determined we're going to do. And some of those things are good, and that's not a bad strategy, but this reminds us, ultimately, it's God's plan that will prevail. And sometimes how we look at failure depends on what is God's plan for our life. I'm going to start by doing a little who said it. So I'm going to read some quotes, and you tell me who said the following quotes. First quote's easy. It's one we've all heard. "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Who knows that one? Michael Jordan. It's one of his most famous quotes. He has several. I'll read 2 others that I like. He says, "I never lost a game. I just ran out of time." And that's a great mindset, that he never quit. He never gave up. He just ran out of time. The clock went to 0, but he was still in the fight. His other one is, "My attitude is that if you push me towards something you think is a weakness, that I will turn that perceived weakness into a strength." And that's a really powerful one. If you think a guy's a bad free throw shooter, you foul him and force him to shoot free throws. He'd practice his free throws till it's a strength. If you forced him to dribble left because he was right-handed, he would spend hours dribbling left-handed until what you thought was a weakness, he would turn it into a strength. He never took failure as a final verdict. Whatever you thought was a weakness, he was going to strengthen. Here's another quote by somebody else. "Failure is success in progress." Anybody know that one? You got to go back before Michael Jordan just a little bit. Albert Einstein. You got to go way back before Michael Jordan. I also love Albert Einstein's quote, "I have never failed. I've only learned how not to do something." That's another brilliant quote. Failure is a learning experience. Confucius said, "Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but rising every time we fail." And then we have the great theologian Mike Tyson, who said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." And that is so true of our life. We all have a plan. We're all going to accomplish things until the first time we get smacked in the mouth, until the first time we face resistance. But what all these quotes have in common is, the theme is, the only way to truly fail is to quit. It's not over until you win. Failure is necessary for success. You don't know happiness without sadness. You don't know cold without heat. You don't know joy without sorrow. It's necessary to experience some failures and setbacks to understand what it takes to be successful. You cannot succeed without failing. And we can look to our prime example, Jesus Christ. The world thought he was a failure. 33 years. His ministry had been going on for 3 years, and he was hanging on a cross, giving up his life. And the Romans thought they'd won, and the Pharisees said, "Finally, we got rid of this guy." Even his followers had some doubt, as this guy came on earth to be a king, and now he's dying? He's leaving us? Where's the army? Where's the palace? Where's the earthly kingdom? Even Satan himself thought, "I finally got him with the stroke of death." But you see, God had a better plan. What they didn't see was on the other side of that wall was a plan of salvation through Christ's resurrection. They didn't see the purpose was the salvation of all of mankind. And we've all experienced failures too. So think about the biggest failure in your life. What is the single biggest failure in your life that you think about more often than not, that I wish I'd won that game, I wish I'd exceeded in that business adventure? Maybe it's a relationship, whatever it is. What's your biggest failure? But then you have to stop and say, what did I learn from that failure? What life lessons do I now apply that prevent that from happening again? In the book of Micah, chapter 7, verse 8, Micah was a prophet, and Israel was under oppression from neighboring warring tribes. And he said, "Do not gloat over me, my enemy. Though I have fallen, I will rise. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light." And that's a powerful statement. Even when he was on the losing end of the battle and Israel was being enslaved and oppressed, he was still talking, "Don't you stand over me, my enemy, because I'm getting ready to get back up." And he says, "Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light." So who's your light? Who do you turn to in tough times? When you're going through trials and tribulations, when you've suffered a failure, where do you turn? So don't quit when you fail, get back up. Maybe you've lost a job or had a setback during 20 and 21. Maybe you're looking for that new job and you keep getting rejected. You're not qualified. Position's full. Don't stop, keep going. Maybe you're looking at your year-end goals. Back at the start of the year, in January, we were talking about New Year's resolutions and goals. Well, where are you? You got 1 month left. The fight's not over. Maybe you haven't met your sales goals yet. Maybe you had a weight loss goal you haven't met. Maybe you just had committed yourself that you were going to spend daily time in Scripture, and that hasn't just fully materialized. You still got a month left. You still got time. Don't give up. Keep going. Sir Thomas Dyson failed 5,126 prototypes before he succeeded with the Dyson vacuum. 5,126 times. How many of you would fail at something over 5,000 times and keep trying? A lot of us would throw our hands up and give up at about 5 tries, if you even make it there. But over 5,000 times, he kept tweaking and reinventing and redesigning to have now the world's greatest selling vacuum, the Dyson vacuum. Elvis Presley got fired from the Grand Ole Opry, and they told him, "Go back to driving trucks. You just don't have what it takes to be a singer, a musician, and an artist." And he turned out to be the king of rock and roll. He took his failure and turned it into a triumph. Albert Einstein, who we mentioned earlier, failed 1,000 times before he created the light bulb. And that's where that one quote comes from. After he successfully got the light bulb working, some news reporters asked him, "How did it feel to fail 999 times?" He said, "Oh, I didn't fail. I learned and discovered 999 ways not to make a light bulb." His mindset was flipped. I didn't fail. I learned a way not to do something, and I'll never do that again. The number one cause of failure is lack of persistence. We don't keep trying. Think back to our story earlier this year of WD-40. We all know the blue and yellow can, and we spray it on everything, right? They say you can fix anything in the world with a can of WD-40 and a roll of duct tape. If it doesn't move and it's supposed to, you grab WD-40. If it moves and it's not supposed to, you grab a roll of duct tape. Simple rule in life. With those two things, you can fix anything. WD stands for water displacement. 40 is the number of tries. The 40th formula was the successful formula. So this guy started developing it, and he was not being successful because they were developing it to put on airline planes. They needed something light and slick that could also disperse water. So he went home and he kept trying. And on the 40th try, he got the formula right. And he sold that formula in the 1950s for $500 to a company. Today, WD-40 has annual sales in excess of $70 million. $500 in 1950 is the equivalent of just over $5,000 today, adjusted for inflation. He sold that formula for $500, and that company has turned it into a $70 million plus revenue stream. What looked like 39 failures on the 40th try became an American icon. James chapter 1 verses 2 through 4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of faith produces perseverance." Now, how many of you, when you go through a hard time, a trial, a sickness, a setback, a loss of a family member, a job loss, how many of you all sit back and say, "Man, this is pure joy. I consider this pure joy"? Most of us, including me, don't think about that initially. And what's interesting about this verse, it just doesn't say consider it joy when you face one problem in your life. It says when you face trials of many kinds, a lot of trials, a lot of troubles. We have to understand God's preparing us. He's testing our faith. He's building our perseverance, building character. Our mindset has to be God is prepping our character for something bigger that we haven't even seen yet. Others' opinion of you should never define you. Have you ever let that happen to you? You ever let somebody else label you, give you an opinion, tell you what they think of you, and that becomes your identity? Maybe you were told you were too dumb, you were too slow, you weren't athletic enough, not good enough for this team, not smart enough for this academic team. Maybe somebody told you you had a bad attitude. Maybe somebody told you you're a negative person. Those things don't define you in life. Only God defines you as a child of God. Don't let the negative, the critique, and those adjectives stick to you. Know who you are. Know what you believe in. Walt Disney once got fired, and on his exit interview, the reason he got fired, his boss told him he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. And Walt Disney kept that piece of paper his whole career as he built the empire known as Walt Disney. Cable channels, more characters than we could ever imagine, famous TV shows, movies, but somebody said he lacked imagination and he had no good ideas. And yet, when they opened Disney World, Walt Disney had already passed, and the CEO was there, and as the grand opening was happening, one of the family members says, "I wish Walt could have been here to see this." And the guy said, "Walt is here, Walt does see it, and the reason it's here is because of his imagination." So God blessed each of us with very specific talents. The key is to not let fear of failure paralyze you. Have you ever let fear paralyze you? You're so scared of making a mistake, you decide not to do something. You're so fear of embarrassing yourself or tripping up or saying the wrong thing or the crowd being against you, you do nothing at all. You're so scared to do something because the boss might chew you out. You might get in trouble. What if something goes wrong? So what do? You paralyze and you do nothing, which may be worse than doing something, is doing nothing. So don't let fear of failure paralyze you. Go out and create that new business, create those new jobs, chase that promotion, chase that degree and that education, chase your dreams. Peter in the Bible failed numerous times, and yet Jesus told him, "You're going to be the rock that I build a church on. You're going to be the cornerstone of my church." But look how many times Peter failed. We know Peter got out of a boat and walked on water to Jesus, and when he saw the waves, he began to sink. Now let's give Peter some credit. He was the only one that got out of the boat. The rest of them were paralyzed by fear. Peter was a pretty pretty bold, brazen guy. He got out of the boat and started walking. And then he sunk, and they thought he was a failure. But he learned a lesson. When I take my eyes off of Jesus and I look at the waves and the chaos around me, I sink. He actually walked on water as long as he stayed focused on Jesus. There was a second time before Jesus was heading to Jerusalem for his ultimate crucifixion. He was telling the disciples, look, I'm going to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to suffer a horrible death, and I'm going to be crucified. And Peter spoke up and said, no, not on my watch. I won't let that happen. And Jesus said, get behind me, Satan. Now I think about that. If Jesus ever looked at me and said, get behind me, Satan, that would be a pretty crushing rebuke. He compared him to Satan, the ultimate archenemy, the king and prince of darkness. And he was making a point to Peter. Peter, God's will is so much higher than what your mental, earthly, human mind can conceive. God's got this great plan for all of mankind, this plan of salvation, but you only see earthly things. You're looking for the army, you're looking for the throne and the kingdom here right now. But there's something beyond this temporary world, and that's God's will, and that plan is above all. And if you try to get in the way and stop it, then you're against God's plan. Peter learned a lesson well. He understood, I have to surrender my earthly wants, desires for what God's will and plan is. Peter was being developed. He was learning things. And then we all know the story of Peter when he denied Jesus 3 times during his trial. And then the rooster crowed, and Peter was crushed. And what did Peter do after he denied the Lord for the 3rd time? When he failed again, he did what we all do. He ran back to what he knew. He ran back to the life he knew before. He went fishing. He went and got in a boat. But when Jesus came back, Peter jumped out of that boat and swam to the shore to meet Jesus. He didn't wait. He jumped in and swam. The other one stayed in the boat. I guess Peter liked jumping out of boats a lot. So he took off, and 3 times Jesus asked him, do you love me? 1 time for every time Peter denied him. And he told him, feed my sheep. By going through all those things, some people look at Peter and say, man, Peter failed so many times. But Jesus was using Peter and teaching Peter and developing Peter to become the rock of the church. Psalms 37, verses 23 through 24. The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in him. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. What a powerful verse. For those that love God, we're still going to stumble. We're still going to trip up. But God assures us we will not fall. We may stumble. We may trip. We may look really clumsy at times, but the Lord will always uphold us with his hand. So my words today are pursue your passion, chase your dream. And we're getting ready to enter a miracle season of Christmas. And starting next week, we've got 3 Wednesdays of Christmas stories. So let's start dreaming. Let's get into the spirit of Christmas. Let's let this miracle season grow our faith. We'll start thinking about 2023 goals soon enough. And I ask you to start thinking about yourself. If you could get up and do something every day when that alarm clock goes off, what would that be? What do you enjoy doing? You're not just going to work. You're building a career. You're doing something you love. Start thinking about that as you head into next year. Don't be afraid to fail. If you love gaming, computers, and technology, think about that. If you love teaching kids, think about becoming a teacher. If you love what you're doing, think about how to, and we'll talk about this later, how to level up and take it to the next level. This is the time to pursue your passion. No more being fearful of failure. We just saw failure is not final. Failure is preparing us for success. So start each day. When you walk into a room, you say, I'm going to outwork everyone in this room. I'm rolling up my sleeves and I'm going to be the one that gets it done today. I used to tell my kids that I coach, do your best, let God take care of the rest. Put your best foot out there and let God take care of the rest of the plans, and you will sleep well every night. Passion is not about being excited about something. Passion is about embracing the grind. Some people think to be passionate, I have to be raw and excited and woohoo and clap and smile and yell. They think that's passion. The real passion is in the grit and the grind every day. Grinding your teeth and getting it. That takes passion to keep working. Because when you embrace the grind every day, you have passion for whatever that cause is. And that cause means something to you. So even when there's no crowd cheering, and even when the weather may be bleak, or it may be cold and rainy, you don't want to get out there, that passion is what fuels you to grind. It's about pursuing the reward through your pain and through your struggles. That's when you embrace passion. It's easy to be passionate when you're ahead in life and the scoreboard's good and the sun's shining, the birds are singing. But to really have true passion is you have to grit and grind every day through your struggles. And only through those struggles and those failures will you experience the success on the other side. Isaiah 41:10 says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. What an assurance that we don't have to fear failure, that we know our God's with us. Don't get dismayed. Don't suffer from despair. Don't live in that. I sent a video yesterday that says, if you live in despair, you'll experience despair. Raise your expectations and live in a position of expectation. Failure is not final. It's an opportunity to learn and grow. Pray through your trials and never give up. God has a breakthrough for you on the other side of whatever wall you're facing. And you may be looking at your wall today and say, well, that wall's too high. How am I going to climb it? You may look at that wall and say, well, that wall's too long. How am I ever going to get around it? Well, maybe you need to go through it. And with God's help, you get up every day and you charge and you bang into that wall. That wall may knock you backwards. And you get up and you dust yourself off and you say, wall, I'll see you again tomorrow. And you run into that wall tomorrow. And you tell that wall, I'll see you again the next day, buddy. And you hit that wall every day. And just like swinging that hammer and cracking that rock, small fracture by crack, by pressure over time, with God's help and prayer, one day you're going to break through that wall. Because God's got something for you on the other side of that wall that He intends and wants you to have. But you have to develop your character and strength to get there. And I leave you with one final word of inspiration today as we close. Don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid not to try. Have a good week. We'll see you next week, and we'll start our Christmas series. Thank you for joining us.